Welcome back, ladies, to the talk show, Chatting with Martin. I've confessed many times that I am a friend to women, and throughout my entire life, in all my hard work and striving, whether it was writing for newspapers, acting in films, writing, literature, or teaching, I have always held one thing dear to my heart, to think of and share the very best things I can for you ladies, so that women can live better lives. And in today's talk, I want to remind you ladies to please never, ever sacrifice these 5 things for a man. First, never sacrifice your entire life just for one man. We can say it as a pleasantry. We can say, in a fleeting moment, you are my whole world. I'm ready to live and die for you. I will sacrifice my entire life as long as it brings you happiness. Fine. Saying it as a pleasantry, saying it like that is acceptable when you're just caught up in the moment, but never actually believe it. And definitely never do it. Our life is our own. Why would we then sacrifice everything? Forgive me, but only a great man like Uncle Ho is known for the saying, sacrifice everything, forgetting only oneself. As for the rest of us, whether you're a woman, a man, or anyone else, you must first know how to love yourself. Don't sacrifice too much for others. A woman sacrifices for her husband, then for her children, and for her husband's family. Then, when life becomes hard because she has sacrificed too much, she becomes haggard, old, and unattractive. And the first person to be betrayed is herself. That's when people turn around and criticize her, saying she looks like a frumpy, worn-out woman. You end up looking like a frumpy, matronly woman, like some old hag. Is that really the time to sit there and list all your good deeds? Why have I become this frumpy old woman? Why did I let myself go like this? Why have I become so unattractive? I gave birth to several children for your family. I gave you children. I broke my back doing this. And I broke my back doing that. At that point, no one is going to acknowledge your sacrifices. People only look at your outward appearance. They look at your face to see what you've become. And that's all they use to judge you. So don't you ever be so foolish. Don't sacrifice yourself. In this life, I want to say this to all women. There are 2 groups of people for whom we are willing to do absolutely anything. First, the people who gave birth to us, that is, our parents. Second, the people we gave birth to, those are our children. As for everyone else in our relationships, no matter how close you are, even if they're family, there has to be give and take. As they say, it has to be a 2-way street for both people to be happy. If I give my all for you, then you have to give your all for me too. There can't be any one-sided affection. It can't be a situation where one person gives their all, completely dedicating their entire life to him. But then he just sees you as this thing or that, as a burden, as just something extra. And if that happens, you'll be at a great disadvantage. There are 4 lines of a poem that I always like to share with women. It's late now. Close your eyes and sleep, my dear. The dew is falling outside, and it's so very cold. Remember to pull up the blanket and keep yourself warm. You must learn to love yourself before you can love anyone else. So, number 1, never sacrifice yourself for a man. And number 2, never sacrifice your children for a man, even if he is your husband, even if he is your lover. I once saw a woman, after her marriage fell apart. In the beginning, she swore she would never get married again, that she'd stay single and raise her child. But as the years went by, she forgot that vow. She met a man who was young, vibrant, and healthy, who promised to bring her new happiness in her later years. However, he set one condition. It was, I love you, and you love me. I can make sacrifices. I can accept you. But as for your child, you either send them back to their father, or you send them to your mother to raise, because I only love you. I can't love your child, and I can't live together with your child. But unfortunately, by then, the woman was already too in love. And when a woman is in love, sometimes she dares to grit her teeth and make a sacrifice. At that moment, all she wanted was to figure out a way to have him in her life, because never before had a man told her he loved her so much. So, what do you think she did? She sent her child back to its father's family or to her mother's house and eagerly went off to get married. She left behind a tragedy where the child afterwards was either abused and subjected to violence, or was left living aimlessly with its maternal grandparents, who are old and weak, while she went off to enjoy her new romance. But did it really work out? If she had found complete happiness, then there would be nothing more to say. But after a while, the truth came out. Because this was a selfish man. A man who only loves a woman, but doesn't dare to truly care for her, doesn't dare to walk alongside her. A man who doesn't dare to share the burden of her child from a previous relationship. Well, I think this is definitely a selfish man. And when you live with a selfish man, sooner or later, a woman will realize it. And by the time she goes back to find her child, that child is no longer her own. Because for so many years, you just let them go. You didn't raise them. You didn't take care of them. Granted, you might have sent money back for the child, but that child was living with their maternal grandparents. As they got older, they realized more and more that their mother was willing to abandon them to be with that man. When you came back to find your child, to hug them, you said, Mommy loves you so much. I want you to be with me. But they reply, I don't need you. Go be with that man. Just go. I have my grandparents. In a few years, I'll be grown up. I'll go out and make my own living. I swear. I promise I'll be able to earn my own money. I'll take care of my grandparents, but I don't need you, Mom. In my heart, it's as if you're already dead to me. Remember, a mother would go through fire and water for her child. A mother becomes infinitely valuable. If we know how to sacrifice for our children, but what about sacrificing your child to chase after a man? Even if that man is the one who promises to bring you happiness, you will find it hard to have complete happiness. Being with one man, but with a constant worry weighing on your mind, wondering how your child is doing now, living with their father. How are they with their stepmother? What's it like with us? Are they safe? Are they well living with their grandparents? A life like that can hardly be completely happy. Granted, circumstances may force our hand. We might have to remarry. But we must choose carefully. Choose a man who is big-hearted enough, noble enough to love us and to love our children, too. So, the second thing I want to remind all you women is this. Under any circumstances, do not sacrifice your child for a man, even if he loves you very much. The third point. Never make sacrifices for a man. If it means you have to sacrifice all relationships with your own parents and relatives, then you will find it hard to have complete happiness. When you are by a man's side, but with a constant worry weighing on your mind, then you will find it hard to have complete happiness. When you're with a man, but with a constant worry weighing on your mind, there are selfish men out there who, after you're married, will tell you that once you're a wife, you must follow your husband's family. As for your own family, you can only visit them once in a while, and you're not allowed to have any responsibilities toward them. Even on holidays, you first have to celebrate the new year, attend anniversaries, and take care of everything for the paternal side completely. And only if there's any time left over can you visit your family. There are even men who prevent their wives from visiting or caring for their own aging parents. They essentially want their wives to completely sever ties with their side of the family. They'll say, "Here, you choose. 1, you're with your husband, or 2, you're always with your family. If you love your family so much, then please, go on, return to where you were made. Go back to them." What kind of woman gets married and spends all her time worrying about her own family? Remember that every relationship holds its own unique value. A woman needs her husband and her children, but she also needs her parents and her relatives from her own side. Our parents are the ones we have a responsibility to care for, a duty to repay for their love. My parents are just as important as my parents. Secondly, my relatives on my side of the family, they are my own flesh and blood. The ones who were with me throughout my entire childhood. There is no reason now why I should sacrifice everything for one man by cutting ties with my own family. So, it's up to you. I can't abandon my parents, and I can't abandon my relatives on my side of the family either. As for you, if you want to be my partner in this, if you'll join me in caring for my family, then that would be great. But if not, then at least let me do it. And if you try to stop me, well, that's your choice. A woman has to have the right to decide for herself, doesn't she? What kind of woman just follows her husband and abandons her own parents? You have to have your own principles. You have to have your own say, right? What kind of woman just runs, following a man to the point of abandoning your own parents and abandoning your own relatives? What's the point of that? If one day you give him your all and he leaves you, are you going to be left with nothing? Will you have absolutely nothing left? Right? So please, remember, we need many things in our lives. We need a stable family. We need a steady job. We need friends. We need relatives. We also need our own personal hobbies. We also need our own clubs and social groups so that we can share our feelings and find emotional release. Don't be so willing to do it all for one man, sacrificing way too much. So remember your parents and your relatives out there. Never sacrifice them just for some guy. Next, never sacrifice your entire self, chasing after a man's personal preferences, to the point where you have to constantly adjust and change yourself. One day he says he likes a girl with long hair, so you immediately get extensions and grow your hair out. And then you go through all that trouble just to win his affection. Then, once your hair is long, he says, "Wow, I have to admit, short hair looks so tough, so healthy and modern, while those girls with flowing long hair look so old-fashioned." So you start all over again and cut your hair short. Then he says he likes women with fair skin, that it looks attractive. So you start trying every skin-whitening bath and treatment, bleaching it with whatever you can find just to get pale. Then one day, he's praising some other girl, saying her tan skin looks so resilient, so healthy and strong, so attractive. So what are you supposed to do? Go try to get a tan now. That is why a woman who sacrifices everything to chase after a man's preferences is a foolish woman. Never sacrifice everything to chase after a man's preferences. That kind of person. Only a foolish woman would turn herself into a toy, a source of pleasure for someone else, and forget about herself. I'm just like this. If you can love me, then love me. If not, then don't bother. You're the same way. I'm not making any demands. I also wanted to marry a prince, you know, but because I loved you, I accepted you. You're a little short, a little bit tan. I also wanted to marry a billionaire. But, well, out of love, I accepted you. With your 7 million month salary, we accept them. So why not demand from them that this is who I am? Take it or leave it, right? Don't ever chase after them. Don't ever reform yourself. Don't ever change who you are just because of a man's preferences. Of course, when it comes to his comments about your personality or your behavior, you should still know how to listen. For example, if he says, you spend too much money, you should try to adjust. Because as a couple, our income is low, and the kids are getting older, and their needs are growing. That's acceptable. Think about it and see if he's right. If he's right, you have to listen. But as for just chasing after what you'd call his personal preferences, we don't do that, right? My eyes are monolids. My parents gave me monolids, but now he keeps saying he likes double eyelids. So I'd have to go get my eyes cut to create double eyelids. Then one day, he's watching some Korean drama and sees that girls with monolids look pretty too. He'd say, wow, monolids have their own kind of beauty. So, what then? Am I supposed to go get my eyelids sewn back together? Right? So, you work with what you've got. And if he can accept it, great. If not, then next, okay. Yes, that's right. We should never sacrifice. For a man, don't sacrifice yourself. Don't sacrifice your whole life. Don't sacrifice your strength and your youth just for a man. We have to remember we were born to live, to be independent, and to pursue our own happiness. Getting married is not a duty. So isi, it's a choice we make. We choose a partner to journey with us. And on that ship, on that shared journey, both people have to put in the effort, have to strive to move forward. If one person is trying, while the other isn't on board with you and is actively trying to sabotage things, you have to be brave enough to stop the ship, get off, and find a different one. Or maybe you don't get on a ship at all. You can just walk along the shore where it's safe. All right? Yes, I hope that what I've just shared helps any of you ladies out there who are still feeling hesitant and uncertain to find more strength, the courage, and the confidence to build a life for yourself that is independent and successful and happy. In my nearly 30 years as a counselor for love, marriage, and family, I have often received questions, even challenges from women that sound like this. I'm a devoted wife. In all the decades I've been his wife, I have never even known another man. Besides him, I gave my all to our family. I served them with good to his family and to mine. As for me, I haven't lived a single moment for myself. So after all that, why does he treat me this way? He has a mistress. He deceived me. He's seeing someone else. He's cheating. And these women are always completely convinced that they've been perfect. So how could a man be so cruel? How could a man possibly cheat? However, everyone sees themselves as the good one. Nobody ever thinks they're the one in the wrong. And so, in our chat today I want to share that there are 5 types of women who, if they don't know how to change, adapt, and improve their mindset and personality, their husbands will inevitably cheat on them. The first type of woman that men get tired of variously and are very likely to cheat on is the woman who only wants to be her husband's mother and not his wife. Oh my goodness, she treats her husband like a small child, nagging and correcting his every word and action. When he walks, she tells him to lift his feet higher, that his slippers must be put in this specific spot. Before going to bed, she asks, "Have you showered yet?" "Why, haven't you showered?" And then, when her husband is already sitting at the dinner table, she'll still make him go wash his hands. What if they're not clean? What if there are germs? Good heavens. All of these things, you ladies do them so well. It's all motivated by the desire to make your husband's life better. There's nothing wrong with that. However, psychologically, you can just imagine that husband thinking, "My God, I'm your husband, not your son. Why are you trying to micromanage my every single move? And sometimes, even his own mother might not have been able to teach him that, but you're always trying to correct and fix him. There have been men so frustrated that they've yelled at their wives. In this house, I'm short a wife, but I've got one mother too many. How am I supposed to live like this? It's like wearing a double yoke. And even then wife is completely surprised, thinking, what did I do wrong? Everything I said was right, wasn't it? Right in principle, but wrong for the person you're saying it to. You can say those things to your child, but you don't say them to your husband, okay? Remember, we are his wife, we are not his mother. So let's play our proper role and not get them mixed up. The second type of woman whose husband also gets bored very quickly and may be driven to cheat are those who cherish everyone else but always forget about themselves. Day in and day out, you're taking care of this person and that person. You wake up early in the morning to iron your husband's clothes and so on. In other words, you're a wonderful homemaker, but the one person you've forgotten is yourself. You let your hair get messy and tangled. After having your second child, you gained over 10 kilograms and didn't know how to catch yourself and make a change. Of course, now that I've said this, many of you ladies will get defensive. You'll say, we're the ones who give birth. We're responsible for everything. How are we supposed to maintain a nice figure and a beautiful body? That's true, but it's not the whole story. Whether you're born beautiful or not is up to your parents. You might not be beautiful enough to be a beauty queen, but you have to at least keep yourself looking clean and bright, looking charming, looking fresh, looking polished, keeping your hair neat and tidy. Get cosmetic tattooing done where you need it, and where you don't, know how to groom and fix yourself up. See, that's why you sometimes complain that men are faithless and ungrateful, that they don't appreciate their own wives, and instead, they go chasing after those long-legged beauties, after those dolled-up girls with their made-up faces. Well, there you go. You know, they're all dolled up. So why don't you try to doll yourself up a bit to, of course, you can't imitate them 100%, but don't let yourself go completely. Remember that men fall in love with their eyes. When he looks at you, he has to find you desirable first. He has to find you attractive. Only after that will he feel something stir in his heart. And only then can he move on to other things. Many times, a man deeply respects his wife, but when he's beside her, he feels no spark. So he ends up respecting her the way he'd respect an older sister, who has devoted her entire life to the family. He respects her like a mother who has devoted her life to the family. But that warmth between a husband and wife is missing, and that makes it very easy for him to have an affair, to satisfy that need. So, ladies, love whoever you want to love. Care for whoever you want. Devote yourself to your husband and children. But do not forget yourself. And on that note, I'd like to offer you ladies a 4-line poem. It's late at night. Close your eyes and sleep, my dear, outside the window. Hey, the dew is falling, and it's so cold. Remember to add another blanket, and keep yourself warm. You have to know how to love yourself first, before you can love anyone else, okay? Don't forget yourself. By taking care of yourself, you are contributing to, what is it? You're already preserving the love and protecting the happiness of your own family. This type is a woman. The third type is the one who is overly jealous, who smothers her husband. It's always, my husband. She wants to control him wherever he goes. If you leave the house, why don't you text? Why don't you call? So, why didn't you pick up? And then, the moment her husband gets on the phone, it's, who are you calling? Why are you whispering? Can't you speak up? But there are some things that people just can't discuss out loud, especially sensitive issues at the office. like if they're discussing tomorrow's appointments or votes of confidence, sitting in front of his wife. How can he just blurt it all out? So he might stand up, go out on the porch or the balcony to speak more quietly and concisely. But because it's such a delicate matter, she still jumps to the conclusion it must be some other woman. He's probably setting up a date, whispering, and then, at every turn, she's just afraid that someone is going to steal her husband away. Even if other women or young girls from somewhere else like her husband, or if they're being close and friendly, she will give them reminders and warnings from afar. I truly think that in this case, it's not about loving her husband, but about seeing her husband as a possession. Always saying, "My husband, are you trying to steal my husband? Don't you dare ask. My husband to do this, that, or the other thing." Women like this also make men feel very exhausted and very easily fed up. The fourth type is the very selfish woman. In truth, the nature of a woman is to be tolerant, to be kind. But in reality, there are selfish people who only think of themselves. In contrast to the woman who cherishes everything but forgets herself, there are women who are overly selfish, who only know how to care for themselves and then pay no attention to their children. Because they're selfish, they only think of themselves and even go as far as not caring about their husband's family. The mother-in-law struggles, all alone in the countryside. If he sends his mother a few million dong, she starts to nag and complain. Or sometimes, when people from the countryside, from the husband's side of the family, relatives, come to the city to go to the hospital and stay at your house asking for this and that, she starts to act annoyed. In short, she lives an extremely selfish life, not thinking about anyone else. But don't forget, there's a saying people teach each other. Sometimes, because of one tree, you learn to love the entire forest. Because you love your husband, you should also love the people dear to him. For your husband's sake, you should be able to join him in sharing the heavy responsibilities, the burdens, and the duties. You see, a woman like that is someone a man could never leave. A man wouldn't easily walk away from a woman like that, you know. So, remember that being too selfish is also one of the reasons that makes a man leave a woman and go find another. And the last one, it's not that serious, but it's very irritating, is a woman who is stubborn and conservative, who refuses to listen, refuses to join her husband in supporting him in matters related to his career, his business, as well as his private life. She gets involved in everything, has her own opinion about everything, and on top of that, she's argumentative. Sometimes, you have to remember, you have to bend your knees before you can jump. If you want to jump high, you have to bend down deep. With your man, you know, if you feel the opinion he's giving isn't reasonable, what he's proposing isn't reasonable. We absolutely can. I really support your creative and innovative idea. However, this needs to be considered carefully. Honey, this is a business venture. It's an investment, not a game. So let me think it over. You should think it over carefully. This is how we delay things, by telling our husband to reconsider and think it over, instead of just saying, "Oh, please, why even bother trying to start a business?" The best thing is for you to just keep your job at the company. A salary of 10 million a month is a sure thing, a guaranteed 10 million. So, forget about all this investing talk. My goodness, what a man! Needs in a wifey is a true partner, someone by his side to support his ideas, his desires, and his ambitions. But what's the point of having someone who just gets in your way and blocks your path like that? That's exactly why there are men who can't share things with their wives, but can share them with a like-minded female friend. They've started a company with her, opened an office with her, or they start some business together because the two of them just get along so well, and that person becomes their soulmate, their confidant, and from being a soulmate and a confidant to eventually becoming someone who shares your bed is just a very short step away. That's why sometimes when you ladies discover that your husband is close with some Miss A, B, or C, you should also take a moment to reflect on whether there was any fault, any share of the responsibility on your part. Why was she able to capture his affection, to capture his attention, when you couldn't? You see, for a woman, being a wife is a very wonderful thing. And being a wife who can protect her family's happiness is what it's all about. A woman is the heart of a happy family life. She's what you might call a blessing to her husband and children. Someone who supports her husband in developing his career, and also serves as a rock for her children, both when they are young and when they are grown. That is a truly happy woman. I hope that all of my fellow women will strive for this. If you're already doing well, be mindful and try to improve yourself even more, so that we can always be worthy of the proverbs people often use in life. And what are they? Wealth comes from friends, prestige comes from a wife, or a family's blessings come from the mother. In today's talk segment, I would like to share some stories meant especially for you ladies, particularly for the young women who have not yet entered into married life. The topic of today's talk is that women will suffer greatly if they get entangled with or end up with one of these 4 types of husbands. Yes, of course, everyone grows up hoping to get married, build a family, and have children, raise their children to study hard, and later become successful adults, and so on. That is the common aspiration of every person. However, to achieve that goal, that aspiration, many factors are required, among them being the initial factor of choice. Because if that initial choice is wrong, correcting and fixing it later is much, much more difficult. It's like when you go shopping and buy an item, and that item is already faulty right from the store. If it's flawed from the moment of purchase, then even if you try to fix it up when you get home, it will still never be quite right. On the other hand, of course, there have been many cases where the initial choice was a good one. But then, along the way, different issues arise. So you just have to, as they say, take things as they come, and fix problems as they appear. The initial choice there have been many cases where it was a good one. But then, in the process, this and that starts to happen. So you just have to live day by day and fix problems as they arise. He's the type who just parties and sleeps until almost noon. We have conducted surveys. But right from the beginning, be mindful and pay close attention. To dare to do thing A or thing B, but people forget one thing. That fit of jealousy, if it's not controlled, if it drags on day after day, month after month, a person's endurance has its limits. Then, at some point, their mind becomes numb and they can do terrible things. There have been so many cases of murdering one person, murdering another, murdering a lover, or even murdering one's own spouse that stem from being unfaithful, from a lack of principles, which then leads to harming other people, but also ends up destroying yourself. Take note, the first thing is to not choose someone who has a tendency to be unfaithful or has the blood of a womanizer. The second type of husband that will make you women miserable for the rest of your lives, if you continue to live with him, or if you simply chose the wrong person from the start. That is a man who is already but is unemployed and idle. In reality, a person can be unemployed and idle. They can be out of a job for a certain period. For example, say he was working for a foreign company, but then, due to business losses, that company shut down and he's temporarily out of a job for a month or two while he looks for another, more suitable job. Or maybe someone is working in the city, but now he's tired of the city and wants to move back to his hometown to build something new for himself. And if things haven't fallen into place during that transitional period, then perhaps that can be considered temporarily acceptable. But if you do your research and see that this guy is 27 years old or 28 and has never worked a day in his life and has always been supported by his parents, then his main activities are to party and sleep until almost noon. The survey with 3,000 women of different age groups. Then he wanders around aimlessly, loafing about here and there. That's just idle chit-chat. At noon, he comes home to eat his mother's food. And in the afternoon, he takes a nap. After that, around 4 or 5 o'clock, he goes to play soccer, or ping pong, or just loiters at cafes. Well, I think that kind of man is an immature man, because a person's maturity is best judged by their sense of responsibility. It means having a stable job. It means being able to support yourself. It means being independent. That's why back in the old days, our ancestor judged a man to be mature if he did what? Accomplish these 3 major tasks: acquiring a buffalo, getting married, and building a house. Acquiring a buffalo simply meant having a livelihood. In the old days, a buffalo was the foundation of one's career. So nowadays, acquiring a buffalo means getting a proper education and finding a job after graduation. Or, if you don't continue your studies, you go to work as a factory worker, or a farmer, or a forester, or you run your own business. But it has to be a job that brings in a legitimate income for yourself. Being unemployed and idle, just wandering around, sitting around gossiping, that's a man who can't even take care of himself. If he's still dependent, who can he possibly bring happiness to? And let me add one more thing. Someone who just wanders around can only hang out with other guys who just wander around. People say birds of a feather flock together. People who go to work at an office or a company, they interact with others who are also educated, who are professionals, who are passionate, and they learn a lot from them. But that guy who just aimlessly wanders around, the people who have jobs, who among them would hang out with him? So he ends up just hanging out with other aimless guys. Birds of a feather flock together. Or if not, out on the streets, there are plenty of jobs that you can do to earn money. Drive a taxi, work as a salesperson, be a street vendor. In the evening, put in the effort to go online and learn how to sell things online. Or even simpler, apply to be a factory worker. Go work in construction at a building site or project. If you don't know how to build, you can be a helper. Just put in your physical labor. If you're at home, and if that's not an option, go to a farm. Raise some animals, plant some crops. That's also a form of labor, as long as it brings in an honest income for yourself. Therefore, stay far away from men who are jobless and idle. The third type of man that you ladies should also avoid from a distance is the violent man. Don't go thinking that if a chicken and a Buddha statue are in the same temple, the chicken won't peck out the statue's eyes. Don't think, if I just live a gentle life, why would he ever start a fight? It's not like that at all. Some people just have violence in their blood. They have a violent mentality. They're always starting fights, looking for excuses. Looking for an excuse with others? To do what? To control them. There are men who were born into a family where their father was also the type of person who would beat his wife and curse at his children, who oppressed his wife and kids. So he grows up in that environment, and he also picks up the habit of treating other people crudely. Then, when he gets married, he also views his wife as his property. So, if his wife misbehaves, he hits her. If she's disrespectful, he slaps her. If his wife does something wrong, he kicks her out of the house. You say one wrong word and you'll get a beating. For example, so don't think, oh, I'll just marry him. Even if he has a hot temper, I'll just be obedient once we're married. I'll just please him, and then he probably won't hit me anymore. The truth is, I've said it before, even if you are as obedient as can be, he can still find some excuse to start a fight. Once a person is already holding back their words, the one starting the fight, he'll say something like, I'm talking to you, and you're not going to talk back to me. You're not going to argue back? One is that he's irresponsible with his own life. He lives a reckless life. He lives messily, unhealthily, staying up late at night, just scrolling on his phone and playing games. Then, during the day, he just sleeps whenever and wherever. And then, after having children, he says, that's the wife's job. It's women's work. Even when his wife was in labor, he was still at home playing games. He said he wouldn't know what to do at the hospital anyway. He told her to call her mother, the baby's maternal grandmother, to come take care of her, or he'd ask his own mother or his younger sister to come to help his wife with the birth. But what he doesn't realize is that his presence alone is a huge source of encouragement for his wife, who is giving birth in that delivery room. And so, what does that also show? A willingness to actually step up into the role of a father. A child is born one day, and a father is born the next. The child makes the father, but in this case, the child was born, and the father was nowhere to be found. If he's still just an aimless, irresponsible young man, how can you live like that, right? So that's why we once conducted a survey about the 4 virtues of men. Because for the longest time, we've always said that women have 4 virtues: housekeeping, appearance, speech, and conduct. These are 4 very precious, cherished qualities, and they serve as the gold standard for many women to strive for. But in modern society, people still ask, oh, so why do women have to strive for everything? They have to be successful in their careers, competent at home, and on top of that, have these 4 virtues. So, do men not have any virtues at all? So, in our capacity as people who are both counselors and conducting small-scale research, we went out and did a survey on the 4 virtues of men. So we also, in our capacity as people who are both counselors and small-scale research, we asked women, what qualities do you value most in a man? And we're not talking about just any man on the street. You see, we're talking about the man you would choose to be your husband, to spend the rest of your life with. So, the women in our group listed them out. After that, we agreed to rank the ones that received the most votes at the top. And in the end, we distilled it down to 4 characteristics, or 4 virtues, that women desire in a modern man. Let's call them the 4 virtues of men. Trung, Eng, Lich, and Tr. Trung is for loyalty, Eng is for having a career, Lich is for being courteous, and Trach is for responsibility. A modern man needs to be loyal, have a career, live courteously, and be responsible. Those are the 4 virtues of the new man, designed to correspond or be the equivalent of the traditional female virtues of diligence, appearance, speech, and conduct. So then, it will certainly be difficult for us to make a choice that is absolutely perfect. But remember, keep your eyes wide open while you're still dating, while you're still observing and getting to know him, so that you can clearly identify the person you are going to walk down the aisle with, the one you will marry. Because once you've made your choice, then later on, when you're living together, you shouldn't be, let's say, too clear-headed, to the point where you see too many faults in each other. I've always said, when you're in love, you have to open your eyes and see. But once you're married, once you're in the same boat together, once you're sharing a home, there will be times you have to turn a blind eye to some of the small mistakes. You have to let them go while you're still observing and getting to know him, so that you can clearly identify the person you are going to walk down the aisle with. the one you will marry. Because once you've made your choice, then later on, when you're living together, you shouldn't be, let's say, too clear-headed to the point where you see too many faults in each other. I've always said, when you're in love, you have to open your eyes and see. But once you're married, once you're in the same boat together, once you're sharing a home, there will be times you have to turn a blind eye to some of the small mistakes. You have to let them go. Only then can you live together peacefully. But it seems like most of us do the exact opposite. When we're in love, we just keep our eyes shut tight. The moment he hugs you or holds your hand, your body trembles and you just nestle into his embrace, completely wrapped up in your own feelings. Once you're in love, you can't even think straight anymore. Then, after we get married, when we need to turn a blind eye, tune things out, and let a lot of things slide, we instead become far too observant. We see every little thing. Hey, your hair. You haven't combed it in 2 days, have you? And those socks. I see they haven't been washed in 6 days. And then, even if our husbands make some tiny little mistake, we're ready to point it out, to expose it. And then we just sit there nagging all day long. That's something we shouldn't do. Listen up, ladies. Please pay close attention to this. When we're young and still have the power to choose, make sure you choose a man who is honest and responsible. Don't choose a man who's a player, irresponsible, jobless, and violent. I wish all you ladies a wise and intelligent choice right from the very beginning, so that later on we can have a beautiful start to a marriage journey that, for many decades to come, will be peaceful and happy. Nowadays, the percentage of women who have to live with their mothers-in-law is decreasing. However, there are still many couples who, for one reason or another, especially financial factors, don't have enough money to live on their own. So they have to accept living with the husband's mother. And that's just how it is when you live with anyone. It always has its own unique difficulties. However, living with a mother-in-law has a few points that you ladies need to be aware of, so that during the times when you can't yet separate and have an independent life, you can at least try to prevent it from creating conflicts that affect your own private life as a couple. Here are the 5 things you should be mindful of. The first thing is, never ever be overly affectionate. Don't caress, cuddle, or spoil your husband in front of your mother. Here's the reason why. Don't forget that your mother-in-law is, in a way, a lofrifal. Before you came along, she was the greatest love in his life. In his life, that person is his mother. The mother who devotes all of her love to her son. For her son, his mother was his everything. Wherever she went, she would have her son take her. When he earned money from work, he'd give it to his mother to hold, and he would ask for her opinion on everything. And his mother had full authority to make decisions about his life. But when he got married, the mother felt as if she had lost the child, because now he has to share his affection, that attention, with his wife or his partner. That's a real blow for the mother. That's why, when you're sitting down for a meal, or just around the family, the wife should be discreet. Don't be all over him. Don't be making smooching sounds in front of her. She'll find it irritating to watch because of a little jealousy. You have to understand, the jealousy here is a jealousy born from having to compete for his love. It's not the jealousy between 2 romantic rivals, like a mistress and the legal wife. Remember, you married her son. That means you have taken a piece of the affection he had, reserved for his mother. So, it's going to be tough. You know, try to be mindful and not be so overly expressive like that. The second thing is, don't speak ill of her son. I mean, bad-mouthing your own husband or her grandchildren. With mothers-in-law, there have been so many women who, upon discovering their husband is having an affair or has some other bad habits, immediately think they should report it to his mother. hoping to use her influence or impact, hoping she intervene. They want her to talk some sense into him, telling her that things at home are like this and that, but the mother will just defend her own son. The ancients had a very good saying. It goes, "The rain may soak the flower, but a mother's heart only aches for her own child, not for her daughter." In any conflict that happens, people will side with their own family. The mother will defend her son, and there's a great old saying for this. It goes, "The rain may soak the flower, but a mother's heart only aches for her own child, not for her daughter." In any conflict that ever happened, people, that's how she defend a child. So don't try to find an ally in her or seek protection from your mother. It's not always the case that we'll feel satisfied or get the results we want. Or some people take it a step further and complain about their own child to the grandmother. Or right in front of the grandmother, there are women who scold their child, saying, "I'll beat your grandma to death right now. I'll beat your father to death." And when they say, "I'll beat your grandma to death," the mother-in-law retorts with this: "If you're going to beat someone to death, beat your own child, not their grandmother. What did her grandmother do that you have to beat her to death?" My goodness. We have to remember that when you're living with someone who is always scrutinizing every single thing you say, you have to be extremely cautious. All right? Remember this. Her son is her own flesh and blood, the one she gave birth to. Her grandchild is the flesh and blood of her family's lineage. If you mess with those two, speaking ill of them is the same as speaking ill of her, and she will bend over backwards to defend them. Yes. "Oh, everyone on your side of the family is so brilliant. But over here, this grandchild of ours is just average. Oh my goodness, you won't get any support, and you'll even be seen as a shrew, you know. So, just don't do it. Don't complain about your husband or child to your mother-in-law. Don't seek an ally or support from her. Of course, I'm not painting everyone with the same brush. Occasionally, there really are good mothers-in-law who will side with their daughter. However, those cases are not very common. The third thing that women living with their mother-in-law need to be extremely mindful of is to not gossip about their mother-in-law. Anyone, especially with relatives from the husband's side of the family, don't think that you can talk to your sister-in-law just because you're in the same boat with both of you being daughters-in-law. Because of that, some have been very sincere when telling their younger sister-in-law, "Oh my goodness, the bitterness that comes with a how awful! That woman is so cruel. She's so spiteful." Look, you can bet that if you share something with your sister, sooner or later, it'll get back to your mother-in-law. Because when there are two daughters-in-law, there's always going to be some kind of competition. Everyone wants to be the mother-in-law's favorite. So the other one will try her best to flatter her, to gossip, to use stories as a way to get on her good side. One day, when she's sitting with the mother, the sister-in-law might gloat. "You see, yesterday, that hoe, she said that you're really a terrible person. You're so wonderful. And she still calls you terrible." I can't imagine what kind of mother she would ever praise. Honestly, it's shocking. And just like that, the mother-in-law has an ally. "Oh, really? She dared to say that about me." And that's when you're done for. Secondly, it's not just your that you shouldn't gossip with. And remember, your husband's younger sister or his aunts, any of the female relatives on his side, don't badmouth her to them. You might say, "My mother-in-law is so frustrating. Ever since I married into this family, I've cried myself to sleep so many nights. My mother-in-law is harsh. She's always interfering in our lives." Then sooner or later, under the guise of offering feedback, she'll go and say, "Hey sis, your daughter-in-law says you interfere a lot, that you're a loudmouth, and that you make things up. That's what she said about me." Oh my gosh. The real intention was to offer feedback so she would change to improve your lives. But in reality, because of the way it was delivered, and the tone of voice. It just turned into ratting you out. And it's true, they make a mountain out of a molehill, and the whole situation blows up. That's why there are some things that you have to be very careful who you trust with. You have to choose the right person to share things with. And when it comes to gossiping about your mother, do not gossip with your sisters or any other relatives on your husband's side of the family. And that goes for neighbors too. So every person should find for themselves a safe space, a trustworthy person to share with, someone to pour their heart out to. Everyone has someone. Everyone's circumstances are different. I can't tell you exactly who you should listen to, right? You shouldn't argue with your mother. Whatever she suggests, I advise you ladies to just say, yes, I understand. The act of saying yes is to show that you are listening respectfully, and all she really needs is to hear someone agree with her. That's all. As for whether you actually follow her advice and instructions afterward, she probably won't even pay much attention. For example, she might give you her opinion, saying, "Why does the child need medicine for every little thing? Back in my day, when I was raising your husband, my son, I only took him to the hospital when he was really sick, with a fever over 40 degrees. Otherwise, I'd just put a wet cloth on his forehead, and he'd be fine in 3 days. So why bother with medicine?" Yes, ma'am, I understand. But then, afterward, you give your child the medicine. You have your own knowledge. You see that the medicine helps prevent your child's condition from getting worse. So you just do it. You wouldn't just say, "Mom, I'm giving him the medicine anyway," would you? The act of talking back, saying something like, "That's ridiculous. Mom, the medicine isn't even expensive. What's the point of saving money on this? If they're sick and you don't use medicine, what else is there to use?" That's when she'll think, so now every time I say something, you have to argue back. So who's in charge in this house then? And so on and so forth. And then it blows up into a huge issue. Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. Just keep saying yes, okay? As for what you actually do, just follow your conscience. Follow what you know and understand, and what you believe is right. That's why you don't argue back. You just agree verbally. And from time to time, you should also know how to say thank you. In reality, this applies to everyone. It's not just about mothers-in-law, but also your own mother, or even your own father, and your siblings, or really, whenever anyone gives you their opinion. You don't argue back. You just listen, agree, and say thank you. As a married couple, sometimes we also have to remember to say thank you to each other. "Oh, thank goodness, Mom! Without you, we would have had no idea how to manage." Recently, when our little boy got sick, he was in the hospital for a long time, and if his grandma hadn't been there, we would have been in real trouble. We both have to work our company jobs. If we take 1 day off, they dock our pay. Take 2 days off, they cut our bonus. Take 3 days off, and they fire us. We were so lucky. Truly, without you, Mom, we would have been lost. You don't have to spend all day saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." But you should acknowledge the things that she has done to help you. People say that if you can't offer me fine food, at least offer me words that bring me joy. So, sometimes, even if we're a bit clumsy in our actions, we have to be a bit more skillful with our words. Living with your mother-in-law isn't as difficult as you might think. And the final point is to share the responsibility of caring for them. Share the responsibility with your husband in caring for his parents. Because, when you get down to it, this is about morals, about proper conduct, about responsibility. And if you treat his family, his parents, well, especially if you stand by your husband's side, to share that responsibility with him, he'll be touched. He, in turn, will treat your parents. Well, that's just how life works. It's all about give and take. So, many times we might complain that he's indifferent to our side of the family, but then you have to ask yourself, what responsibility have I shown for his family? When his parents were sick, what did I do? And then we might say, well, we contributed money to hire a caregiver. What more is there to do? Well, in that case, you can be sure that whenever your own parents, get sick, he'll probably just pop in for a visit. Well, in that case, you can be sure that whenever your parents get sick, he'll probably just pop in for a visit. When your parents get sick, he'll probably just pop in for a visit. Then there's that 1 million dang envelope again. And with that, your responsibilities fulfill, right? That's why what's needed most is thoughtfulness, genuine care, and a way of showing gratitude to your parents-in-law, a mother-in-law. No matter how difficult she is, no matter how harsh she might seem, will have her heart melted by a daughter-in-law who is always respectful and agreeable, always saying yes, who knows to say thank you from time to time, who praises her every now and then, who brings back a little gift for her, whether from a long trip or a short one, especially when she's sick. What people really want is to have someone by their side so they feel less lonely. If she opens her eyes and sees her daughter-in-law by her bedside, you can rest assured that after she recovers, she will have a complete change of heart. Living with a mother-in-law is a difficult thing. However, it is a skill that can be learned. I hope that you ladies will equip yourselves with the swords and spears, the weapons, and the essential life skills to coexist with this one incredibly important person. She is the person who gave birth to the husband you have today. I wish everyone a warm, peaceful, and happy family life.